Hi. Um, this is my first video that I'm uploading to YouTube. Um, I am recording this. I'm recording this because the Lord just wants me to get my testimony out there. Um, I have not shared my life the way I should have. Um, Made so many bad decisions, horrible decisions. So I am going to put some of God's goodness out for others to hear. I am dealing with something um, right now that is hard. We've moved to Little Rock, Arkansas. The Lord opened every door for us to move here. We didn't commit to this decision easily. And now here we are. It's been a year and a half since, a little over a year and a half actually, since our house first went on the market in Kentucky, and it still hasn't sold. And so now here we are, where my husband took a job that pays less to bring us to this church here. And the Lord opened every door for us to be here. But now here we are, and our savings is gone. We don't have the money to pay the house payments. We've had renters in there, 3 sets of renters, and they've all screwed us over. The first one literally shoved plastic when she got evicted because she paid her deposit and her first month's rent, signed the lease. She moved in and never paid another dime. So 3 months later, when we started the eviction process and she got notice of eviction, when she moved out, she shoved Walmart sacks down the drains, covered them with dirt and mud so it hardened, and flushed diapers. So we were out a few $1,000s, several $1,000s, um, fixing plumbing. Then the next one's moved in with the lease specifying that the house was still going to be for sale, or if we had taken it off the market, but we were going to be putting it back on the market, and that we would let them know. And so after they had lived there a month, we let them know that we were going to put it on the market. We were not going to make them move. We were going to work it out so they could stay there. Um, these were people that had moved from out of state, and he was working with somebody we knew. And so we got this. They need help. They're dealing with a lot thing, and so we let them move in, and then we told them, and they quit paying. Got mad, cussed at me, Their whole demeanor changed. We were such a blessing before, and when we gave them notice and told them, we don't want you to move, but we're just letting you know that we're going to put it back on the market. Oh, then it was cussing us out. Um, Horrible text messages, just horrible text messages. And so then they got mad and said, well, we're not staying here then. And they moved. Okay. So we went back to paying the monthly payment while also paying for our household here in Arkansas. And then we put it back on the market. Didn't seem like the realtor was interested in actually selling it. She kept trying to tell me she wanted um, she wanted to have us take like tens of thousands of dollars less than what it was worth, what it was appraising for. And she didn't really want to show it. People that she showed it to were people that were clients of hers from out of town. And she just was like, you sure you don't want to just take this? I don't know. It just didn't feel right. The Lord didn't lead us to do that. But now here we are, and we don't um, we don't have any more money. So we're going to lose our house, which means we won't be able to buy a house here. And so um, that's hard. That's hard because I don't feel like. Anyway, so I'm going to start giving my testimony, and I'm going to share it every time after I record one. I'll just share it. But for today, I thought I would tell the story of how my love bug, my Laurel, came into this world and what we endured to get her here. A lot of people do know this one, but a lot of people don't. So I just want to let y'all know. In October, after Stephen and I got married in the summer of 2011, I had just found out I was pregnant. And I went to ladies' workout night at our church that we attended in Kentucky. And I was there, and they were doing some like walking, stepping stuff. And I went to raise my hip, my right hip. And it just felt like something popped or snapped or something. So anyway, and I thought, oh God, I've pulled a muscle. So I did what I could to finish working out, but I couldn't move well enough to continue. So I went ahead and went home, and I got up for work the next morning, and I worked at Hilliard, and I got up to go to work, and I still just was super unable to move. And like, I felt like my hip was just like caught. I don't know another way to describe it. Just like kind of like it was stuck. And so I went ahead and went to work, and um, I was just sitting at my desk doing my work, and I had a coworker named Brian, and he was like, "I'm gonna go over to the not a gas station, like a it had been a gas station 100 years before, but now it was just like a you could go get drinks and stuff there." And he said, "I'm gonna walk over there and get something to drink. Do you want anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I want a Dr. Pepper," which y'all that know me know I don't drink soda, but I was pregnant and it sounded really good. So he went and walked over there and he got me Dr. Pepper, got his own drink, and he came back and he gave it to me. And I drank it, and I just was like hurting. So I got up and walked around, and I thought, well, I'll go to the bathroom while I'm up. Because of course, when you're pregnant, all you do is pee or sleep or puke. With Laurel, all I did was puke for 9 months. And so I was walking, and something just it felt like snapped again, and I couldn't really move my leg. Then my right leg just would kind of drag, and so um, after that, I sat down, and when I tried to get back up, I couldn't get my leg to move at all, just my right leg. And so Stephen was at work, and my mom was at work, but my dad, I miss my dad. My dad was at home. And so my Brian, my coworker, he knew my dad. So he took my phone and he called my dad. And he said, "Kendra wanted me to call you," and because I had asked him to call, he said, "Kendra wanted me to call you to see if you could come pick her up. Something's wrong with her leg and she can't move it. So she feels like she needs to go to the walk-in clinic." And so my dad was like, "Yeah, okay." So he came up there and he picked me up and he took me to the walk-in clinic. Well, just so happened, I don't really know how anyway, I think his name was Dr. Chumley. Um, he, the person that was in the walk-in clinic said, "Can I call Dr. Chumley? He's down in orthopedics. I want him to look at you. I just don't really know. This is not my specialty. And I want to make sure, since you're pregnant, I don't want to send you home with a problem." And I was like, "Yeah." So he sent me down to orthopedics to Dr. Chumley. Dr. Chumley was looking at me and checking my hips and checking how, if my feet were even, if they were lining up and stuff like that. And he said, "I think your hip is just like uneven. Your hips, like your pelvis is rotated. I'm going to adjust you a little bit, and then I'm going to set you up to go to physical therapy." And I was like, "Okay." And he did some stuff, and then he pulled my right leg, and it was like I had been shot in the back. It was so painful. And so after that, I started physical therapy. And I did physical therapy 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks. Because that was like the 1st of October. And I went for 2 weeks. And the physical therapist that Friday during the day at Baptist Health said, or deaconess, whatever it was, 12 years ago, said, "I think that we've probably gotten all we're going to get out of you. It seems like your hips are pretty level now. So I'm gonna say I'm just gonna dismiss you, and if you have any more problems, come and just make arrangements to come see us again. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not a physical therapist, so whatever. That was Friday during the day, I think, like early in the day. And that night, Stephen, um, by then, Stephen had changed jobs. In those 2 weeks, Stephen got a job at Alliance Coal. So he moved to Alliance Coal. And that was his first week. That second week of me in therapy was his first week at Alliance Coal. And they had put him on second shift. So he was on second shift. So I got off work and I went to Mom and Daddy's, and I ate dinner with them. And then Mama was like, I need to go to Lowe's to get whatever. Do you want to ride over there with me? And I was like, sure. So I got in the car with her and we went to Lowe's, and um, we were walking around Lowe's and she was looking for whatever it was she's looking for. And I was walking behind her, and I took a step and I had this horrible stabbing. I'm talking stabbing pain. And then I was paralyzed from the waist down. I couldn't move. I had grabbed a hold of the Lowe's shelf I was walking by, and I was just holding on because I was afraid to let go, because I was afraid if I let go, I would fall because I couldn't feel my legs. And so my mom started screaming for help, and people that worked at Lowe's came running, and when she told them she can't feel her legs, something's wrong, they went and got a wheelchair, and they pried me off the shelf and lowered me into the wheelchair. When they lowered me into the wheelchair, the pain was just excruciating. And I went to ER. They called 911. I went to ER in an ambulance. Everybody in my hometown knew about it practically before I, got unloaded at the hospital. And small town life. And they took me in, and the ER doctors that were working didn't know what to do with me because I had sorry, my doorbell rang, and I'm telling my mom so she can answer it. The doctors just didn't know what to do with me because I was pregnant. And so they didn't want to do an x-ray. They didn't want to do a CAT scan. They didn't know if they should bother with an MRI. They just didn't know. And so they called my OBGYN, which was Dr. Neely in Madisonville, Kentucky, who was amazing. And Dr. Neely came in, and he was just like, I am unsure what to do with you because I feel like this is a bone or back issue. And I'm a baby doctor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you over to orthopedics so that they can look at you. And I was like, okay. I mean, I was just laying there, unable to move. And he was like, let me see who's on call. Well, it just so happened that the doctor who was on call that night was an orthopedic doctor who had a really high infection rate. And so Dr. Neely was afraid that if something had to be done and that doctor operated on me or did something, that the infection, I could get an infection and that could cause harm to me or cause harm to the baby. So he left me in the hospital over the weekend and gave me just enough pain medicine to not be in dying pain. And on Monday morning, he turned me over to Dr. James Donnelly. And a lot of people didn't like Dr. Donnelly because his bedside manner was lacking. But he was just an old army doctor. You know, he was rough and gruff. But for me, because I was pregnant, he kind of treated me like a China doll. So I have nothing but wonderful things to say though, because he came in and it was kind of funny because Dr. Neely had come in and said he's real soft spoken and gentle. And he said, "Now, Kendra, I do babies. I don't do backs. And I think this is a back issue." And Dr. Donnelly came in. That was on Friday. And on Monday, Dr. Donnelly came in. Dr. Donnelly was like, "Well, HELL, Kendra, I don't do babies. I do backs. Well, I don't know what you want me to do." And him and Dr. Neely just got together, and he was like, I'm gonna do an MRI. That's all I can do. You're pregnant. You're knocked up. Can't do nothing else but an MRI, because an MRI is done with magnets. And so he did the MRI, and they took me down to MRI late, like Monday afternoon into Monday evening, and he came in later that night, and he pulled up. It was kind of funny because he pulled up the MRI sheets, to like hang up, so he could show us like what. And he holds it up, and he was like, you see that right there? You see that?" And Mom and I were like, "Yeah," like looking at it, yeah, we see that. What is that? What does that mean? And he was like, "Oh no, that's not your back. That's your baby. Isn't that awesome? That's the fetus." He kept calling it a fetus. He would call it baby. So that's the fetus. Isn't that awesome looking? Done like that. And I was like, "Yeah." "Oh, but does that show anything about my back?" And he said, "Oh, yeah. You've got he said, you've got a HELL of a ruptured disc. It's probably been ruptured for years, it looks like, but I just wanted you to see this." And I was like, okay, I have a ruptured disc. So what does that mean?" And he was still looking. He said, "Well, that's just really cool." And he puts it down. He said, "Well, that means I'm going to have to go in and operate." And I was like, "You have to go in and operate?" And he was like, "Yeah, I got to go in and operate." He said, "So first thing in the morning, you're going down, and I'm going to have to fix. You're going to have a discectomy and a laminectomy. Means I'm going to clean out where that disc has ruptured out, and I'm going to bore a hole a little bit bigger to make room for the nerve that comes through there, and we're going to be done. And hopefully you'll be better after that." And I was like, "Oh, okay, no big deal." So that night, Stephen comes home. All weekend, Stephen had slept at the hospital, and I was like, "You've got to go home because you've got to get some rest." And on Monday, he was still on second shift. So, I find out I'm having to have back surgery the next day at night, and he's on second shift, so I can't tell him. So then he gets off work, and he got off work at like 2 or 3 in the morning, probably around 2 back then. And he comes to the hospital instead of going home to bed. And he was like, I told him that I was having surgery the next morning, so then he wouldn't go home. So he stayed and slept on those horrible chairs at the hospital. And so the next morning, they come to get me, and they go to take me down. And Dr. Donnelly says, "You need to be prepared. because when you wake up, you probably won't be pregnant because the fetus can't handle general anesthesia. And I was just like, what? Why are you telling me this now? And he's like, well, I'm just letting you know. And so, like, they wheeled me into the OR and I was bawling. I was just literally falling apart. And then, to make matters worse, you have to lay there uncovered, no undergarments on. You have to lay there uncovered so they can stick all those pads and stuff on you. And one of my best friends growing up, her brother was the nurse anesthetist that had to look at me naked. And he also grew up at my church. But he had to look at me naked and put all those pads on me and all that to make sure that while he had me under anesthesia, I didn't die. It was so embarrassing. So I'm bawling my eyes out because I'm being told I'm not going to be pregnant when I wake up. And then I have to see Michael Crider look at me with no clothes on, which was embarrassing. And it's like just, one thing piled on top of the other. I can look back now and laugh, but at the time it was just horribly embarrassing and just devastating. Thinking, I'm 30 years old before I got remarried and had a baby. She just got pregnant and now here I am. I'm not going to be pregnant when I wake up. And so, they give me the anesthesia and I'm out. Like, count back from 10. I probably was lucky if I made it to 9. And so, when I woke up, my mom was patting my hand. And you know what? I don't really remember in that moment, Stephen. He was there. I don't really remember him saying or doing much. So all I remember is my mom patting my hand. And I remember before I even opened my eyes, I had tears. And Mama said, "It's okay, baby. Guess what? That baby that you've got in there, they said it wouldn't make it through general anesthesia. That baby has been flipping and flopping and awake long before you have just got awake. So that baby is absolutely fine." And then all I could do was cry. Cry for a different reason, tears of joy. And so I was like, hallelujah, So they got me up as soon as I was the groggy was worn off enough that it wasn't a danger for me to walk. So they got me up and sorry I keep scratching. I have a scratchy spot on my arm. They got me up and they walked me up and down the hallway at the hospital, and they had me on the labor and delivery unit because I was pregnant. Even though I had orthopedic surgery, they wanted me there in case there was a complication with the baby. And so I walked up and down the hall, and by the middle of the night, my right leg was starting to have some ache again, like some, I don't really know how to describe it, like deep down, just kind of deep down pain. And by the next morning, now this was Tuesday, so by Wednesday, my right leg was starting to drag again. It wasn't moving fully like it had started last time. And the next morning, so Thursday morning, Dr. Donnelly came in again and he was like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So he says, I'm going to schedule another MRI and I'm going to see what I can see. And I was like, okay. So they do another MRI like really late Thursday. And um, so he comes in like Friday, early Friday morning, like probably like 6 Friday morning. And he says, I don't know. I've looked at this MRI and I can't see anything. And I had the other doctor look and he can't see anything. Um, I don't feel like you're faking. I feel like something is definitely wrong because your sensation is not there on your right side. Um, Something's just not right. And I was like, okay, so, and he said, so I think we need to go in and do an exploratory and I need to see if I can figure out what's going on. And I was like, so I have to go into surgery again? And he said, yeah, I think that's the only option. Otherwise, you might end up permanently paralyzed. And I was like, okay. So I called my mom. I didn't call Steven because I knew he had worked late and I had made him go home that night. So I called my mom and I told her. And then uh, she said, well, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. The Lord brought you through the last one. He'll bring you through this one. And I was just like, but a second surgery on this baby, like really, And so I knew I had to. So again, um, this time Stephen was at work because he was on second shift, and so he we go to OR, and again he just reminded me. He said, "Well, Kendra, the likelihood this time of that baby making it through is really none because that baby shouldn't have made it through. That fetus shouldn't have made it through the first time. So you need to be aware that 2 times in a row, what that anesthesia does to you, it does even more so to that fetus. So you need to be aware of this time. There's no way that baby's coming through. That fetus is coming through." And I just didn't, I was upset, but I just didn't get as worked up about it the second time as I did the first time. Because I just remember Mama saying, well, the Lord brought you through the first one. He'll bring you through this one. And I was like, okay. So again, embarrassing. This time, instead of Michael Crider seeing me naked to put all those little things on me, it's Heath Robertson that I went to high school with. Yeah, this time it was Heath Robertson that had to look at me naked and put those stupid stickies all over me to monitor my heart and all that while I was, unconscious. So again, you know, luck of the draw. It couldn't have been someone I didn't know. Instead, it had to be another person I did. So um, he puts me to sleep, and the same thing when I woke up that from that surgery. Mama said, that baby did it again. That baby is absolutely awake, flipping, flopping, having a good old time. So that baby came through this surgery just fine. And then when Dr. Donnelly came in to follow up with me, he was like, yeah, the baby came through, the fetus came through, but you need to be aware that the likelihood of that fetus being normal, having normal development, is probably not great now because general anesthesia is not safe for a fetus when it has to be done the way we've had to do it, and twice. I was like, okay, it is what it is. So I got let out of the hospital after some therapy and walk-in and stuff, and I got introduced to um, my physical therapist that I had the rest of the pregnancy, and she was amazing because her whole um, practice now is maternity. So she was just had just started. She had just finished her extra classes to that she had taken that helped her focus on maternity patients. And she had just set up. She had one little room over in the women's center at the hospital that was for her and maternity patients. And so they set me up with her, and Dr. Donnelly and Dr. Neely were both just like, you don't need to be alone. So we had to um, live with my mom and dad to for them to babysit me. My mom and dad had to babysit me anytime Stephen was at work. Um, he was working so much, and they didn't want me to be alone because they were afraid that if something happened and the uh, surgery didn't hold up, and like the more disc ruptured out or something, that if I were to uh, or if I were to fall or something, that it could mean again I was um, going to be permanently um, paralyzed. So we stayed at mom and daddy's. Um, I had to sit in a chair just all the time. Just I was constantly just sitting. It was getting on my nerves, just sitting all the time. But I understand why they had me do it. They were trying to keep me safe, keep the baby safe. Um, and then in December of that year, so December of 2011, Brother Brandon Houseworth came and was preaching at our church. And um, altar service, praise was going on, and it was awesome. And I was standing like on the second row um, of the right hand side of the church where I usually sat. And um, he came down. He was in the working altar service, and praying, and church was going wild. It was awesome. And he came over to me and he asked if my husband was at church with me. And I said yes. And I don't remember if he was up in the sound room or if he was just further in the back where he had gone to do something. Anyway, um, I said, yeah, he's, wherever. And so Brother Houseworth sent somebody to get him. And so Stephen got up there with me, and Brother Houseworth asked if he could touch my belly. And by Christmas of 2011, I had gotten pretty big. Laurel wasn't due until the middle of March, but I had gotten pretty big, and I didn't really get much bigger from Christmas on. All the weight I gained, I really gained in my second trimester. And so I was very noticeably pregnant. And so he was like, "Can I touch your belly?" And I looked at Stephen, and Stephen looked at me, and he was like, "I guess." And so I said, "I guess, yeah." So he just very gently, just like touches. He doesn't like, just touches. And he's just praying. And then he leans in and he tells us that what I had in my belly What I had was a fire in my belly, and that baby was going to come out, and that baby was going to win thousands and tens of thousands for Jesus. Actually, I think at that point, he said she is going to win thousands and tens of thousands to Jesus. And we didn't even know yet that she was a girl because she had been uncooperative and wouldn't unfurl when we had gone and had our multiple ultrasounds. She just wouldn't uncurl, and they pushed and pulled and practically beat on me till I was black and blue, and she just would not uncurl. So we didn't even know that she was a girl, and he said she. And it was amazing. It was amazing to hear it. It was amazing to see Stephen's face and to feel him next to me and be told that. So that was in March. And then because of my back, even though I went to therapy, I continued to go to physical therapy all the way up until the week I had her, the Monday before I had her on Tuesday. They would not, I worked and worked with Steven sitting behind me and using him as my support so I could give birth and all that. Dr. Neely and Dr. Donnelly just didn't think that it was a good idea for me to try to do natural childbirth. And so they wouldn't let me. So I had to have a C-section. Well, I was really sick. I had gotten bronchitis and was super sick and coughing and not doing well with getting deep breaths because I was so sick. And so they took me and had me do like a breathing test on Monday afternoon. And once the anesthesiologist saw my results and all that, they were just like, she's good to go. We need to get this baby out because she's not getting deep breaths. Her coughing is rough. The baby's pushing up so on her diaphragm enough that she can't get a deeper breath in. So that was on Monday afternoon. And on Tuesday morning, I reported to the hospital for my C-section. And my C-section was scheduled for 7 a.m. And at 7:51 a.m., Laurel Avery Rudd was born. And she weighed 8 pounds. She was 22 inches long. She was perfect in every way. All of her APGAR or whatever they're called, all those tests that they do, everything was great. She was a girl, needless to say. Her first name is Laurel, which is after Stephen's grandfather, great grandfather, great great grandfather, and great 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 grandfather. Her middle name is Avarie, after my mama, Ava. And she has been amazing. She is funny. She is giggly. She is now 12. She will be 13 on March the 6th. Today is January 16th, and she will be 13 on March the 6th. It's killing me. Her teenage years already are killing me. Her and Lincoln are the best things that Stephen and I have ever accomplished. And we know that the only reason why she is here, they are here, is because God is good. So good. So that is one of the most important testimonies I have. So I wanted to get that recorded, and I'm going to post this, and I'm going to share it, and I'm going to have other people share it so that I can start this testimony, kind of testimony service, if you call service church in my house. um, yeah. So there's that. God is good. He's been amazing to me. I am blessed beyond measure. So I'll record another one. Till next time.